Well, welcome to the July 2nd, 2024 session of TAPR and HamSCI technical session. My name is Dave, KV0S, and this week, continue to work in the shack. I'm still having a few problems with my K9 with my Whisper Demon, and my two Whisper Demon support staff have been busy. One is Mike and one is Rob, and so I'm hoping that maybe this week I'll get it straightened out. It came from I was reorganizing which computers were doing which tasks, and I also messed up, Bill, my uploads of the pseudo grape stuff, so I'll get that back running again. So that's it for me. Next on the list is Dave, KD0 EAG. Go ahead, Dave.
Oh, hello. Yes, I should start with I've been doing a lot of things, but right now and today I have been madly fooling around with Linode server because it ran out of disk and didn't give me any notice. It gives me all kinds of other notices, but not that. And I had purchased more, I'd paid for more disk, but I'm not that much of a sysadmin at this advanced stage, and I don't know all the new stuff. But I had gotten this other kind of storage, block storage, which they manage like on a SAN or something, and it's cheaper and much more convenient because the other I have to upgrade both the CPUs and to upgrade everything, and that's kind of expensive. The next each increment kind of doubles what you were paying before, and I was happy where I was as far as that went, but I could add space. But the thing is, I have to remap everything, and so I've been working on that all day. And the data probably, some people's data has probably not been, those people who still use it, some of it has not gotten up there recently. But it should, if there's not too much of it, it should catch up as soon as I get it all set up right. Trouble is, I've set some of the links. I did it all with links, and I very cleverly did some of them with the links pointing one direction and some of them with the links pointing the other direction. And so moving it's harder than it should be. But anyhow, I'm working on that, and I've turned off the web server for right now. I can't shut down the SSH that people use to upload data without locking myself out. So I have not done that, but everything should straighten itself out in time. I've convinced myself. Anyway, sorry about that. I knew I was getting close, but got distracted. And so things should be better tomorrow, or sometime tomorrow, probably by tomorrow night.
Is
That's it.
that it?
Yeah.
Okay, next on the list we have Bill, AB4EJ. Go ahead, Bill.
Thanks, Dave. Nothing to report tonight. Back to net.
Okay. Next on the list is David McGaw, N1HAC. Go ahead, David.
Hello, everyone. I spent last week on another conference virtually, the GEM conference that the project that I'm starting up on hopefully will continue is involved with. And it turns out that the citizen science portion of it already has Nathaniel and Christina written into it, as well as hopefully myself and others. But it's using the, what we do to complement a set of 9 spacecraft that's going to be studying the Earth's magnetotail. So really interesting stuff. And I guess that's about it. Just continuing to watch solar storms. We had a K=8 this past week, but it was very brief, and we were day side, so it didn't do much for us. But and 25 megahertz WWV still has not recovered.
Yes.
But it was very interesting, the talk that we had, the piece that I guess it was Gwyn did at the HamSCI Science on Thursday about 25 megahertz dropout during the eclipse. And he's hot on the trail of what was going on with that. So back to net.
Okay, very good. Next on the list is Dev. Go ahead, Dev. Any comments? I guess he's just listening. Next after that is Franco, K4VZ. Go ahead, Franco.
Hey, good evening, everyone. Last week I had actually my wife's family was visiting here, so I didn't get too much. I did do some work over the weekend over Phil Harman's what you call DFC prototype. I'm still having problem, which I can figure out why with the DAC. So basically, I see all the pins are correct in my signal is correct in, but there is no output on the output of the DAC. Is an AD 9744 or 94, anyhow, something like that. So I'm still trying to figure out what's wrong with that. And then I resumed with the so-called TRX Duo, which is what I was playing with after the holiday and so on. I saw the Pebble Daemon as a new version of the software, so I'm trying to port it to the TRX Duo, and that's basically it. Back to you, Dave.
Very good. And I will mention, Nathaniel's not going to be here tonight. If you haven't heard, he did have his wife had a baby on Thursday. So there's another
All
Frizzell.
right.
So
What did he get? Boy or girl?
girl.
Ah,
So now he has a boy and a girl.
have they announced a name?
Was it? I believe it was Danielle. Is that right? Anybody else that got the email?
I think I do. Let me see.
I can't remember exactly.
Daniel Abigail.
Yes.
Ah,
He was born on Thursday, 7 pounds 3 ounces.
Yes.
That sounds like a bouncing baby.
Yes.
Yeah. Actually, what is DAC2 that he said was approved for funding?
It was the Daisy grant. He and Christina, maybe that was what
If you know,
Dave
I mean,
was
I just
mentioning.
doesn't.
Isn't that what
Yeah.
he's collecting information for?
Yeah.
Are you asking what is Daisy 2?
Yeah, he
Yeah,
did.
he said it
That's-
was approved for funding, so I
Well,
was
he
wondering
said
what it
it
excellent.
was 95%.
Yeah. Well, that's the
95%, yeah.
next round of hardware development.
Yes.
Oh, cool.
So
That's nice.
let's continue down the list. Next on the list, we have Jay Schwartz, WB8 SBI. Go ahead, Jay.
well, good evening, everybody. It's very good news to hear about Nathaniel, and I hope Rachel is doing well, and everybody is doing well. Nothing really new here. just, if for anybody who hasn't heard, Logbook of the World is back up, but they're requesting people to please go easy on it for at least the first week, especially if you've got a huge backlog that you've got to upload, and to also not start from the beginning and upload all of your contacts that you've ever made to redo those. It's not going to be well received. You may get dumped out of that. It's also that they're putting in software to feed out, read out. If you get more duplicates, if there are a lot of duplicates you're attempting to upload, it just may stop the whole upload process and reject your whole upload. So there is an announcement came out today about Logbook. So go easy for the first week or two until they get all the new modifications back up and squared away. Other than that, I'll just be sitting back and reading the mail. Hope everybody has a happy 4th of July weekend here. Take care, stay safe, 7-3 to all. And I'll just be reading the mail for the rest of the meeting.
Okay. Next is Michael, AC0G. Go ahead, Michael.
Good evening, everybody. I got back from Fargo just a couple hours ago and then had to rush off to a meeting where I work. And I just got back from that, had some supper. My mom, who had a great 90th birthday celebration a couple of weeks ago, fell a few days back and broke her hip. So she lives up in Fargo, North Dakota. She had surgery the same day and seems to be doing pretty well. I have a variety of job duties this coming week, but I hope to get back up there. Pertinence to ham radio is that I do have a listening station up there using K9Q and an RX 888. I also have a magnetometer up there. While I was there, I took the chance to revise the B-Link computer that it's hooked up to. I hadn't adjusted the firmware to manage fan speed and to power on again if it powered off, which was for a remote site, that's a pretty important thing to do. I do have a SynthPi kit from the University of Texas that I wanted to install up there too. But I'll probably be back up in another week or two and install that. I have to drill a hole through the side of the house to get the feed line in. I am curious, though, if Dave McGaw can comment on it eventually, whether I should take the setup I have here and take it up there when I go, or whether there's other plans afoot. Back to net.
Okay. And let's see. Next on the list is Phil, K9Q. Go ahead, Phil.
Hello. I just got back in from a long medical day. God, these things are just boring. Anyway, I finally got one of my 888s with an external reference, and starting to see some of the things you guys see. Like last night, I watched the ionosphere lift up at sunset on 5 megahertz and then stabilizing, and that was kind of cool. I guess that's routine. Let's see. Yeah, I got a couple of those kits. The external reference jack was easy enough to install, but the thermal big thermal thing was just impossible. I just wasn't able to get it in there. I eventually ended up tearing about half of it and stuffing that in there. If anybody has a good way of getting that, teasing that thing in there without tearing, please let me know. Let's see. Other than that, a few minor changes. K9Q radio. I have a feature which is actually useful for looking at small frequency offsets. I show both the normal phase of the PLL and also an unwrapped phase. You know, it counts full cycles. And so assuming there's no cycle slip, of course, and that's kind of fun for watching very, very small frequency changes over long periods of time. So let's see. Other than that, that's about it. I'll probably think of something later. Go ahead.
Okay. I have been enjoying your improvements to monitor and control and such. So appreciate those. Next on the list is Scott N5TLNL, and he's no mic, so just listening. And then we have Taylor L. You have any comments, Taylor?
I just want to introduce myself, I guess.
Yes.
Met Bill out at CDAR, and we got to talking about VLF receivers, and turns out we have some stuff in common there. So as he may have mentioned, our group's kind of interested in doing our own VLF design, and I was told that some of you guys are also working on VLF design.
Yes, Jonathan's the one that does the most on VLF, and he's not here tonight. So,
Gotcha.
so you have to come back. But we meet once a week, so
Okay.
same time every Monday.
I think that's the first time Jonathan hasn't been here in a long time.
Yes.
By coincidence, just when Taylor happens to show up. So
I chose
I put the big marketing thing on Taylor to join us, and we could probably join forces on doing some VLF work. So
Yes, I think there's all kinds of potential, and Jonathan gets very focused on his particular problems each week. So sometimes he takes a lot of he really is very focused when he works on it. So anyway, so any other comments from you?
No, I guess that's it. Yeah, I guess
So
I
the
chose
way we work this is I usually do a roll call just so people can say hi once, and then we get into open discussions, and that can go many different directions. So anyway, so let's see. Last on the list is Tom N5EG. Go ahead, Tom.
Well, good evening, Dave, everyone in the group. Spent most of the week fighting power outages. We had 3 major multi-hour power outages in the last week.
Oh, gee.
And got the router recovered this morning. It turns out that once power is lost to the router, it has to stay off for an hour before you can turn the power back on, or the router locks up into la la land. So an interesting bug. Had a cable go out exactly the same instant in time, so confusing. I spent the week looking at double data rate and LVDS high-speed interfaces, which might be usable for the FX10 part, and also FPGAs. And I've not been able to really find anything fast enough to support 4 receivers on the FX10. Neither the FPGAs nor the CMOS, assuming it's a CMOS double data rate. And LVDS is fast enough, but I haven't found any multiplexers for LVDS that are fast enough to multiplex. And so I'm going to retrench a little bit, making some guesses about the FX10 really without a data sheet. We're just kind of scratching heads in the empty here. But the alternative might be to use a pair of FX3s for a 4-channel receiver rather than an FX10, and or make a 2-channel and find a way to synchronize 2-channel receivers. So that's what I've been looking.
Well, yes, Tom's network glitched again.
that's the problem he was talking about. Apparently,
Yeah. Well, he'll come back. I did want to say, Dev, we called on you earlier and you were not around, so I'll let you have a chance to say something.
Sorry to have missed that call. I came here after a very long time. Very good evening to everyone. I actually wanted to briefly catch Nathaniel today. It looks like he's not here
No,
today.
he had a baby this week, so he's at home with the baby.
Okay.
Little
So I
girl.
actually wanted to have a brief chat with him. So nevertheless, I am glad to see everybody. I hope everybody is doing well. And I wanted to say hi and hello to everyone. Okay,
Very good. Good to see you. And there's Tom back.
thank you so
Yeah,
much.
I don't know how far we got in the discussion. My Linux computer has crashed twice since I brought up Zoom at 6 o'clock.
Well, we got most of it, but if there's any other things you wanted to mention.
You got to the point where you said you couldn't figure out how to multiplex 4 ADCs onto the interface.
Yeah, nothing fast enough, including looking at FPGAs. So it may be cheaper and easier to look at multiplexing 2 receivers into an FX3 and figuring out how to synchronize 2 of those.
Well,
Yeah, if we can figure out how to get time stamping into it, some way of tracking the timing, that would work.
Yeah, one possibility is to implement a counter. And then when the pulse per second hits, snapshot the counter and send that in the metadata.
Yeah,
So a couple possibilities there.
very good. Well, I think that's everybody on the list tonight. So we'll be open for general discussion. Say, Phil, we did
Okay.
see
I was
your
gonna
talk.
say, anybody know how to cram those thermal pads into an RX-888? I just couldn't do it. I ruined 2 in the process.
Yeah,
I'll tell you what I did, Phil, is use the old plate. If you got the kit from
TAPR,
Turn
yeah.
Island, yeah,
Yeah.
use the old plate and just lay it down flat across the pad as you're sliding the board in, and just gently guide the whole width of the pad into the case. That's what I did with.
Use the old plate. The problem is the clearance in there is just too tight, and then the foam rips as I'm pushing it in, or it's like
Did you get the one that had a copper cover on it?
Yeah, I got copper. I tried it both. I tried it on. I wasn't sure what I was supposed to do with it. I tried putting it on the foam against the plate and on the plate against the foam, and neither one helped. It kind of looked like what happens when you drive a tractor trailer just a little bit too high under a low bridge.
Yeah,
Right.
what I did is I got a putty knife that was about 1.5 inches wide, and I stuck the putty knife through the case and over the top of the thermal pad with, in my case, some slippery plastic instead of metal. And then I pulled on the putty knife while pushing on the module so that both the putty knife and the foam slipped in, and then wiggled the putty knife out.
Oh, I see. And of course, putty knife had to be very, very thin.
Yeah, it has to be
Yeah,
a
I
real
see.
thin
Yeah,
knife.
drawing. I was wondering how this would help, because the problem was that it just wouldn't slide against the case. But if you pull the knife, then
Yeah,
hopefully the putty knife doesn't get stuck in there.
Right.
Well, they're usually polished.
Yeah, so I got a real polished, thin, flexible one, and then was able to wiggle it out after I got everything in.
Yeah, I should try that. Of course, it means you're never going in there again to go back to the internal reference. So I don't think I want to convert all of mine.
Yeah,
Where did you
it's
get your
it's a
material?
one-way mod.
It's a one-way mile. What'd you say, Dave?
I just where did the thermal pad you have, where did all that come from?
Came from the kit I got from Tapper.
Okay,
Turn
so it's
Island kit plus a slab and a piece
and
of
we
tape.
got that pad from Paul, I believe.
Yeah, and I ruined 2 of them. Well, pretty badly chewed them up.
there's pads in the different thicknesses, but if it's that really the fancy pad material, most of it's pretty thick. And I don't know if it,
Yeah, Rob was insisting it had to be that thick to get enough compression to really transfer the heat well.
there's 2 different thicknesses of it, but I don't know.
Well, I got 3 kits and they appear to be the same.
Uh-huh.
I'm going to go ahead and do the software change after this experience. I'm going to do the little software change I've been threatening to do, which is I'll add a flag to a DMOD channel that will turn on the PLL on that channel and just lock the reference to that. And then you don't even have to hardware inject a reference into the radio anymore. You can just lock on whatever tone happens to be leaking into your front end. I can't keep it out of there anyway. I might as well take advantage of it. Because that PLL is really stable. I mean, I tried tuning into like a 10 megahertz signal that's been floating around my shack, and it just locks, bobbles maybe plus or minus a degree or two. And then I put in a display in a counter inside Radio D and a display inside another line display inside of control, so that it shows unwrapped phase. If it goes around more than 360 degrees, it'll keep track of it. Of course, that only works with no cycle slips. But now I know how to calibrate my rubidium standard. I got one a while ago. Those things have a little adjustment screw in them, and I started playing with it, and I suddenly realized, wait a minute, I'm now a man with two watches. I don't know what time it is. But if I calibrate it against GPS, then the GPS by definition is going to be perfect over the long run. And so I could let it sit all night and count how many total degrees of phase it has moved. And that way I'll know how far off I am. So I won't know how far to turn the thing. I'll have to turn it and then see what happens. I'm realizing writing the software for one of these GPS DOs is probably not as simple as you think. You're basically doing the same thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, and as you're finding, Phil, once you get below the 10 to the minus 11th level, it's a challenge to measure it.
Well, let's see, 10 to minus 11. How many degrees in a day is that? 10 megahertz.
Good question.
I mean, WWV itself is supposedly 10 to the minus 12, but of course the ionosphere is much worse than that. So I did see the ionosphere rising rather sharply at about minus 0.3 hertz or so and 5 megahertz at sunset last night. Is that typical?
Yeah, that's not unusual.
That's not unusual. And then once the sun had set, it stabilized again.
Yep.
Because at that point, the whole path was in darkness. But WWVH was still changing. And of course, that's because the path was part in sunlight and part in darkness last night coming in from Hawaii. So that was kind of cool. God, we've come a long way since when I was a young ham and what we had for frequency standards. Man, if I was one of the killers, I was lucky.
I missed the time when we had Loran.
Yeah, apparently it's back on the air again, at least experimentally up in Alaska. No, Washington. I can barely.
Northwest.
Yeah,
Has
Northwest.
it running.
Either
but we used to have one Nantucket that I could pick up with a wet noodle.
Sure.
And use it for frequencies as a frequency standard.
Yeah.
There's a test station in New Jersey that they sometimes have on, but it hasn't been on for a bit. But hopefully that comes back because that is the robust backup to GPS.
Well, all of us who know GPS have been worrying about this for a long time. I know I have. It's just damn easy to jam. And it's going to happen and people are going to be caught flat-footed.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting. That's what's going on in Ukraine.
Oh, I'm sure there is.
One of the reasons that the Russians wanted to get into Crimea is there's a Loran station there. And they're using Loran for their navigation so that they can jam GPS.
Oh, I see. Yeah. North Korea is also acting up, but we're used to them doing that. The pilots go in the Seoul often report GPS is screwed up.
But yeah, you have to wait a long time on once you get down to that level, tweaking your oscillator. And then you also have to realize that GPS DOs are not perfect.
No, they're not. No,
there is a certain amount of drift to them.
They are perfect over the long run, but
right.
the problem is what's going to happen in intermediate range.
But
'Cause-
depending upon the DO, they can drift 100 nanoseconds either way.
Oh, really? That's not that much, huh?
Yeah, depending on the one. I don't know what the Thunderbolt, which is my reference standard, is, but they're pretty good. But
I'm using a
it still drifts
Bodnar.
nanoseconds.
Leo Bodnar will generate both 10 and 27 at the same time, which is I need 10 for my air
Right.
spice.
I have mine set to 24 and 27 because 24 is what a RSP Duo and such want.
Oh boy, you mean there's there's more
Yep,
standard?
they're even
Yes.
different.
I thought 10 was the standard because a lot of test equipment does take it.
Right.
The first thing I've seen that requires something else is the RX 888. But then I thought, well, that's not so bad. If you can't keep it out of the front end, you might as well put it where you don't care.
Yeah, the 27 is a video standard,
Oh, is it?
telecom.
I didn't know that.
That's where that comes from.
Are there any others?
Well, there's the old color burst.
Well, 3.5. Yeah, that's not the problem is it's not a
But
it's
no,
a
all
yeah.
the video decoder chips and whatnot run off 27.
Yeah, 3.579545545. I remember that from memory because I used to
Yep.
work in television. And also a lot of early
That's-
PC used those
Yeah, it's
crystals.
63/88 of a 5 megahertz atomic reference.
That's right. It is, yeah.
And it's 0.1% off from 60 hertz.
Oh, no. That the color burst, that it is the color burst, but yes, it's 59.94%, 59.94 frames, no, fields per
Right.
second. Yeah, that was
So-
done actually to move the sidebands away from the sound carrier.
Right, I know. But then it
5.
screwed up the hum bars.
Right. So yeah, it was a familiar sight in video to watch these hum bars slowly crawling up the screen about every 8 seconds, which is the beat difference.
Right.
That stuff is all gone now.
I wouldn't say all gone. I
Pretty
actually demonstrated it in field day. I've got an amateur television set
Yeah,
up.
well, Ham's demonstrated Morse code too, so that doesn't really count.
But I actually have a cable head end modulator. So it's actually vestigial sideband on channel 59 cable, which is the bottom end of the 440 band, 70 centimeters. And I just tune a TV set to channel 59 and I've got my receiver.
Mm-hmm.
I hooked that up at field day as one of the educational demos. I also broadcast around the house at channel 3.
Oh, an old game modulator?
Yeah. Actually, one of the Radio Shack modulators, because it actually has a stereo audio modulator in it.
Oh, I'm going to ask Franco if I should be able to use his code that he wrote to set the reference frequency. I have been using it to make calibration adjustments on 27 megahertz. Now, how far should that go? I mean, could I even, I've tried reprogramming it for 10, but it didn't seem to lock up. I mean, is there some particular reason?
I don't think so. I don't think so, actually. The specs of the 5351 said if you work from 10 to 100. So that's all I know, Phil. I'm not sure why it wouldn't lock.
I might not have had the levels right. When I put it together, I turned it on, I realized I hadn't adjusted the levels at all. And so then the question, what should the level be? And I ran it into a scope with a 50 ohm terminator on front, and I don't think I could get any higher than, what was it? Well, it was 3 volts peak, 3.3 volts peak to peak. I can't remember if that was with or without the terminator.
Okay. Because I know what's his name. Glenn Elmer has played around with those clocks, so maybe you'll probably know better than I do. I mean, I just
know
know
there
the
is
software.
there is termination on that board, I believe, so
Yeah,
I have to adjust it with the termination on the scope.
yeah. Another one is Clint Turner K770OI that has done some experiment too. I don't know how
Yeah.
far or low they were able to. The one thing we found out is that you can overclock them all the way to 150, 160 megahertz if you want have fun with them.
You can take a reference that high?
Hmm?
You can take the reference that high?
Yeah, so let's say you can take the reference at 27, but you can make the 5051, the ADC, and everything run at 150, 160.
Oh, I mean, beyond the 130 that it's spec to do.
Right, yeah. So some
Yeah.
people who do radio astronomy, they want a wider band, so they try, and it seems like their AAA are surviving. I mean, at least,
Given our thermal problems, that doesn't seem wise.
yeah. Actually, I tried mine at 200 for 5 seconds. Then I had a moment. I said, hang on.
Did you let out the magic smoke?
No, it's just plus the one I have, the DFC, he has no fan, no nothing. So I said, gonna try to see if he makes it. And then, but he was starting
Right.
to throw random numbers. So I don't think the ADC was able to stay.
It didn't clock that fast.
Yeah. But then, I reset everything and it started working. So I don't think I
Huh.
killed it.
Yeah. Yeah, I noticed that some of these SDR front ends that require external references will freeze up and not recover until you've unplugged and replugged them. That's true for the AirSpy R2. If you lose, even though it has an internal reference, a momentary loss of the reference, it won't switch back to the internal one. It will just lock up, and in some cases, not even show up in LSUSB until you've cycled it.
Yeah.
Yeah, that happened when I accidentally clocked it at 27 megahertz. It didn't even appear in an LSUSB listing, probably because the firmware was so probably locked up handling such a fast clock.
Yeah. I think there is something related to that. And I think what's his name? Glenn too saw something like that when he lost his clock. He said basically he had to unplug it and plug it back in.
Yeah. It just makes things so problematical at a remote site where you may not be able to do this easily.
Yeah.
Bill, for reference, it takes about a day for a 10 megahertz clock to precess one cycle at 10 to the minus 12th off.
10 to the minus 12th. Okay. One day. And that's about what WWV's carrier spec at, isn't it?
Yeah,
Probably.
you won't receive it at that.
Oh, I won't receive it. No, but I mean, Glenn might. But
yeah, if you can get ground wave, yes.
Maybe better than that now. I don't know what they're using for frequency reference.
10 to the minus 12th is what I would say. There you
10 to the minus 12th, I think is where it's spec. Yeah. Okay, one cycle per day at 10. All right.
Since we have a lull, Michael, two things. One, the receiver that you have has gone offline again. So try power cycling it. Not sure what's dropping. And then I do have an address for you if you're willing to pick up the one that's over in St. Louis. And then we can decide which one you take up to Fargo, if you can do that.
Mike,
Put
there
that
you
in
go.
the chat or email it to me.
I'll email it.
Very good.
Yeah, I don't know if anyone has any thoughts on this, but we've been having our Raspberry Pis drop out. We're using Pi 3s with a solid state drive, and even though it's being fed solid 5 volts and whatnot, it's I'm getting low voltage glitches, high temperature glitches. It we are trying putting heat sinks on the chips, but doesn't seem to have changed anything. I'm suspecting power, the high current power that a solid state drive pulls like over an amp in pulses, even though its average is down in the 100 milliamp range. But
The unit that I've got in my shack right now is has a fan blowing on it. So I'm hopeful the thermal issue is not the main one there. I unfortunately keep wondering about whether the local network I'm using, the devices, when they upgrade, or they upgrade their firmware from time to time or automatically, that it forces a reset on the whole DHCPD and leases, and that may be what's screwing up as well. So
I hadn't thought about updates.
Yeah,
Yeah, because we've had, well, here's one thing that we've had more than once something will go offline on the new month.
Interesting.
It'll work to the end of a month and then drop off.
Well, here it is, July 1st. When did you lose contact with the unit at MICE?
It was a little while ago.
Okay.
I hadn't gotten in touch with you yet, but.
All right.
But I think yours did do that once at least.
It did it once before, and now it's done it a second time. So
well,
what I may do is see if I can't just stop automatic firmware upgrades on the router.
If you know how to on the router, okay.
Yeah, then do it manually and then just check and make sure that everything is still talking to everything else.
Yeah, and our systems are passive during the day. We're during the eclipse we were running during the day, but normally we start at like I think it's 2 or 3 o'clock in the afternoon, and then run until the morning. Because most of our science is at night. We catch the sunrise, sunset. But middle of the day, it's not doing anything. So that's when like I can go on and check the receiver and see that it's working. Because I won't interfere.
Yeah. Well, I'll go reboot that so that it's active tonight.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Well, I'm a little knackered. I'm going to take off, guys. Peace. 73.
See you.
Thanks. I noticed the talk of watchdogs here. I've thought about Pi's got to have some kind of watchdog in it that you could enable.
We also have had Michael A8K and Joe W7LUX jump in here.
Good evening, all. Yeah, sorry, took a nap and just woke up, so a little bit asleep here. I've see my grape, is it DRF or Eclipse version, whatever, has been down for more than a week. Finally got some guidance on a solid state disk for replacing it. Ran over and bought a solid state disk, put the thing on there, and it doesn't work either. So apparently it's not the disk, it's the controller that has died. And I have 2 of them on order. They'll be here maybe Wednesday. So maybe I'll get the second grape receiver running one of these days.
Well, your station was featured in Rob's talk in Germany. I don't know if you saw that, but
I did not.
so he used the four-way, you, Mike.
Oh, I saw the I didn't see the talk, but I saw the results.
Yes,
You're talking about Gwen's work?
yes.
Yeah, Rob presented that. Yeah, we all saw Gwen's presentation on Thursday.
Yep.
Thursday at the afternoon science one. That should have been recorded if you want to go back and look at it.
I should, because I have I've been asked to do a talk at the HamFest in several weeks about what's been going on up in the ionosphere. And so I'll have to go back. That was
Right.
the Thursday morning meeting.
Right.
Okay, I'll go back and look at that.
And the one in Germany should come up. They haven't moved the recordings over yet, but by 3 weeks, we hope they have.
Okay,
I watched it on YouTube live, as Dave did, and several other of us, but they don't, because it was the weekend, they didn't spend time transferring the recordings.
Dave, the link is still good. So I put the link in the next GenSDR group and you can click, it still works.
Okay.
It's unlisted, it says on YouTube, but you can watch it. That's what I watched because I was with people the day, so I just saved the link and watch that later on.
Very good.
This project that I'm working on is interesting. The spacecraft system is called Cinema. And so the citizen science adjunct to it is being called Movie. And let's see, what was his name? No, I'm trying to remember the principle on it, but it does very much. It talks a lot about using the HamSCI network, as well as some other of the citizen science initiatives, including Aurorasaurus and such. This is a project. Cinema is supposed to pick its low Earth orbit network of satellites that will measure particles coming in from the magnetosphere, and with an idea of actually imaging the magnetosphere because of the way magnetic field lines connect.
Speaking of space and launches, everybody see that Chinese rocket that kind of got away from him yesterday?
Oh, yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
man. I've never seen that before.
That,
What happened?
They were static firing was basically a clone of this Falcon 9 first stage, and it broke free of the launch pad.
Oof.
Yeah, it flew
Of
up
the
quite a
test
ways,
stand, you mean?
and yeah, it got free of the test stand, flew up
no, it was it launched.
and stopped, and then came back down about a kilometer and a half away. And there's
Yikes.
a lot of large population centers nearby.
We've had that happen in Alaska, but there weren't too many people
Actually,
around.
break away from a test stand during a static fire.
Well, we didn't have that, but we had a misfire of first stage, and it plopped on the other side of the highway.
Well, okay. I mean, if
But
it's an
yeah,
intended launch, launches do fail.
Right.
This was not intended to be a launch.
Right.
One of the news articles I heard on that said nobody was hurt.
Yeah, I saw it too.
That's good.
Big explosion when it hit the ground, and it
Yeah.
wasn't far from town.
So, yeah, so at least I could joke about it because nobody was hurt. But
Well,
I
another
kept
interest.
thinking, I kept thinking, where's the earth shattering? There's supposed to be an earth shattering kaboom. And then at the end, finally, there is one. Or Marvin Martian.
Another interesting
expecting to
misfire.
blow up in the. I was expecting it to blow up in the air from a range safety system, and it didn't. It didn't detonate until it hit the ground again, and that'd be a lot worse.
I don't know about them. Our sounding rockets don't have any destruct mechanism. They just do what they do.
Wow.
There was an interesting misfire just before we got to the Andoya rocket range in Norway for one of our shots, where the first stage nozzle blew out on launch, and the thing pinwheeled around. As I say, there's no destruct mechanism, no way to stop it. So the second stage was going to light. You just didn't know which way it was going to go.
Ooh.
It went horizontal up the coast toward the local village, plopped into the ocean 200 yards off the
Oh man.
shore.
I thought they would still have some they would still put linear shaped charges along the outside. I thought that would still mostly stop a solid fuel rocket. It would at least stop it from thrusting.
There's no such mechanism. You just
Well, the
try to
solid fuel
keep people away.
boosters on the shuttle had it because they were used during the Challenger disaster.
Yeah, well, these are little guys, but
Yeah, yeah.
relatively little. I mean, they're repurposed. A lot of them are repurposed ICBM motors.
Right.
But no, there's no
thought-
such
I-
mechanisms in our stuff.
Oh,
They
okay.
just
I thought you
go.
said there's no way to stop a solid fuel rocket, but that's not totally true.
Yeah, but they're just to show how the Norwegians are. You know, the media comes rushing in and trying to, asking people, "Oh, yes, horrible thing that just happened." The townsfolk are saying, "What? Nothing happened. What are the chances of it happening again?"
Well, if it was near a
They're
town,
very pragmatic.
I'm still surprised by that test of the Starship a couple months back where the range safety system went off and it did not immediately break apart.
Mm.
That, to me, was a very grave failure. I mean, the FAA should have grounded them before they, I hope they
Right.
grounded them before they fix that.
You know what I'm doing?
The other thing that shows who the Norwegians are is that we were monitoring the launch from a trailer, a NASA trailer that had been shipped over there, and it was cabled down and all. But one day we had hurricane force winds, and everything was shaking around and whatnot. And it's like, around here, trees are flying, and roofs are flying off and whatnot. And up there, it's like, no big deal. We build our houses for it.
Speaking of rocket launches, I think there's another one in Vandenberg tonight. I mean, there've been a whole bunch of them right at sunset lately. It's been really nice.
Well, speaking of that, there's some really strong noctilucent clouds showing up, and they're not supposed to be during solar max. And they're figuring that the Tonga volcano might have something to do with it, but also all the Starlink launches may be injecting a lot of moisture into the upper atmosphere and causing them.
Or maybe the upper stages are doing something, venting, because I mean, there
Well,
was
they do a lot of venting and whatnot, and just the fact that they fly through there, how many they have launched. They're injecting a lot of moisture into the upper atmosphere.
This has been a question I've had for a while. What do they do with the spent upper stages? And for the launch we saw recently, the answer was apparently they drop them in the ocean about one orbit later.
Yep.
So it makes sense to do some venting or maybe a propulsor burn as they're going over, well, not Norway, but to think about what's on the other side of the earth from there. So I think wasn't there a famous picture from Norway of a spiral in the sky?
Yeah,
Yeah.
they're venting spirals, or
Yeah.
a lot of people are seeing them from various places.
Oh, we saw the upper stage of the first Falcon 9 Heavy do its escape burn out of orbit, the one with the Tesla. My wife and I caught it, and there was no announcement from SpaceX. I just wanted to see it, so I figured out that it was going to be a pass around sunset, and we should go up and watch it. Much to our surprise, the thing started to do a burn. You see vents coming out the two sides, and the vent stopped, and then a big plume formed afterward. And
Oh,
it
neat.
was only about a minute or so. That was enough.
They launched those from the down there in South Texas. My grandparents had a little little motel, 4-unit motel when they retired down there in Port Isabel. And I don't know, but I think it seems like that the launch location is just about where it's awful close to where they were retired, where they lived retired. And it can't be much like it was when I remember it. It was just a dry kind of sandy spit.
Just north of the Mexican border. I mean, I'm surprised the Mexicans allowed it.
Yeah, well, it's right there. Brownsville is, and Matamoros, share but Port Isabel is kind of even just a step further than that, and the SpaceX launch thing when that one kind of blew up all over the place there, and there was a little brouhaha about them being so sloppy about it. I'm just sure that was right where
Yeah.
their little motel was.
Well, they could probably lease out those rooms for a lot of money for launch.
Yeah, unfortunately, it's a long time ago.
But their rockets can blow up for all I care. Well, I do, but the real thing is that when the range safety system is triggered, that it works, and it didn't work. I didn't catch it right away. I think Scott Manley did on his channel. He showed how you can see the detonation of the charges, and all that happens is that the fuel starts leaking, and it takes like another 30 or 40 seconds before the stages actually broke up. I mean, a lot could happen in 30 to 40 seconds. Imagine not blowing up a rocket when you want to. I mean, or not being able to when you want to. Usually it's the other way around.
Get into some kind of scary stuff there one way or another.
Well, at least the propellants aren't hypergolic.
Really?
I mean, I think the Russians, the Indians, and the North Koreans still fly launchers that use hypergolic fuels in their first stage, and that's scary. When they blow up, you see a big orange brown cloud, nitrogen dioxide. Yeah.
Yeah.
I've been reading a bit about the German rocket plane during World War II. What was that, the 188? Used hypergolic fuels that, if they leaked, it dissolved the pilot.
Well, the Germans are crazy. I don't think they were that crazy, but I mean, they try a little bit of everything. You ever read Ignition by John Clark? Or John Clark, I think it was.
No.
Oh man, great book. The guy's long gone, but he was a chemist. He was tasked by the military with basically testing every rocket propellant known during the 1950s and 60s or so. He had a chapter in each one, and oh my God, the guy has a sense of humor. I think it's actually back in print now. I highly recommend it.
Who wrote it?
Clark, that was his name. It's simply Ignition.
Uh-huh.
Ignition, an informal history of rocket propellants.
Oh,
John
very
D.
interesting.
Clark, yeah, there he is. Died 1988.
I guess we chewed up the rag.
I guess so. We'll think us up as soon as we go away. Rob is still in Germany, I guess.
Is he? Where else did he go?
I don't know where else he went. I don't know, he might have went to Austria. I mean, we were going to go this year, but then I decided to stay back and take care of the medical stuff. But I did join in for my talk at the SDR Academy on Saturday. And he gave my talk for me, but I was on there and was able to answer some questions. So that actually worked. I'm thinking, it was within my lifetime that the first Telstar was launched, and it was a big deal that you could send video across the Atlantic in real time.
Oh, yeah.
And now we just do it routinely for free.
No, I remember when they had to time broadcasts across the ocean for when it was in the right place.
Oh, yeah.
Because it wasn't
Howard.
geosynchronous, it was low Earth orbit.
Well, yeah, elliptical orbit. Basically, they can use any orbit they got in those days.
I remember Echo.
Yeah,
I can
I
remember
saw Echo too.
I don't remember seeing it. I think my dad told me about it, but I think I was too young to remember it before I really knew how cool this stuff was.
I remember standing out in the schoolyard watching. I was never very interested in baseball, and but they made me go out there, and so I always got the far right field, outfield, and spent my time trying to see things, see if there were any of those sorts of things floating over. And I remember seeing something one time.
It's possible. Of course, now it's easy to see stuff. We went out and saw a sunset launch of a Falcon 9 a week or so ago with Starlink satellites. And then we were standing out there chatting with a neighbor across the street about things. And his daughter looked up and asked if that was an airplane. And I looked up and realized what I was seeing was the train of Starlink satellites from the other launch that had occurred in the same day from Florida 9 hours earlier. It was too soon to be the ones that we just seen launched, and they weren't the right place in the sky. But we saw them. That was the first time I've seen a Starlink train. I wasn't even looking for it.
I didn't know you could see them.
What?
Oh, yeah.
Oh,
Oh, it's
yes,
fun is that you see them right after they're released, and they're flying in tight formation. You see a chain.
Yeah,
Right.
they're in formation in their lower orbit than
Right.
their final.
Right. Yeah, by changing the altitude, they can cause the plane to precess at different rates, so they can change the plane. It takes time, but they can phase the orbit plane to get them wherever they want. Which is why their launch windows are apparently not too tight.
how many of those things are up there?
Oh God, it's I think it's pushing 6,000 now.
Yeah.
It's a scary number when you think about it. At least they're low enough that they will come back on their own eventually if they fail. I mean, they say they're going to deorbit all the old ones, and I'm sure they're going to try, but some of them are going to get hit, some of them are going to just fail. And you want to make sure that they can come down on their own. When they talked about 1,200 kilometer orbits, that's when I got scared because those orbits last forever. But at where they are now, was it 560 or so? That's sufficiently short-lived that they should be okay. Or we should be okay.
I do astronomical photography and we're getting satellite traces. I'm getting satellite traces very frequently now.
I believe it, probably Starlink. My favorite Pixar movie is still the movie Wall-E. I love that movie. And there's a scene where he's grabbing onto the side of the space, the launch vehicle, and he's flying through the solid shell of spent satellites around the Earth. I keep thinking of that every time I think about Starlink. I think of that scene in the movie. They were very prescient.
Has anyone heard anything about coming up with any way or efficient way or economical way or any way at all to garbage collect all the debris that's floating around up there?
There are people working on it, but that's going to take a lot of work.
My concern would be that they decide to just blow everything up and then we've got a almost solid shield or solid shell of little particles.
Actually, I forgot where I was reading it. There was concern now that all the debris from launches, uh from the stuff that comes in and re-enters and burns up, and all the things that are jettisoned, from a launch, that they don't fall back to Earth. So there's actually a lot of pollution in the upper atmosphere that is from all these launches and debris coming back. It doesn't all come back to the ground, doesn't all fall through. It's staying up there, these very small particles. So, just like we were concerned about years ago and still concerned about ozone depletion and about what was it? I think it was chlorine or something, atoms that were staying in the upper atmosphere for a long, long time. They're now starting to be concerned with some of these contaminated particles. When something comes
Chlorine
in,
is the culprit in during the ozone layer.
right? I'm using
Those
that as an
individual
example.
molecules. Yeah.
Yeah, but the stuff that's coming off all the launch vehicles, the rocket exhaust, the exhaust from all the launches, the chemistry that comes out of those rocket engines, it's staying up there. That is starting to really become a contamination problem.
This is the image I have. Yeah. Well, the only unrealistic part is that all satellites are intact here. That's not how it's going to be. It's going to be little bits that you can't see.
Well, coming up about 10 minutes past the hour here, troops. So maybe let's call it a day.
All right.
We'll catch y'all later on down the log. Everybody have a safe and happy 4th of July.
You guys too. See ya.
7-3, everybody.
73.
73.
Take care. Bye, Mike.